What's up, guys? It's your boy Alfredo hanging out with this guy, your favorite fur ball, Tony Cat. For today's How To Thursday, I'm gonna show you guys how to use the chain breaker tool that we use. You would interrupt my vlog. That was good. So after last week's How To Thursday, where we reviewed the 3 best BMX multi-tools, a lot of people wanted to see them in action. So today I'm gonna show you guys how to install both a half link chain and a full link chain using the Animal Catouillat tool. All right, so for this tutorial, I'm gonna be showing you guys how to install the Primo 510 chain, which is a full link chain, the Animal Catouillat tool we use as a chain tool, and then the Shadow half link interlock version 2 chain in a nice chrome. All right, so first up, I'm gonna show you guys how to install the more traditional chain, which is the Primo 510. So as you can see, the Primo is the more traditional full link chain. So that means that it has the female piece, which is this piece that has the bearing and the hole, and then the male piece, which actually has the pin that we're gonna be popping out and to install it. Okay, so the first thing you wanna do is disassemble your tool, because you're gonna be needing the 17 to loosen up the back wheel. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is loosen up the back wheel. The reason that you want the back wheel completely loose is because you're gonna wanna slam it. What that means is that you want the axle to bottom out as far as you can into the dropout, so that there's no space here. So that when you install the chain, it's gonna be at the most taut point when you pull it back. Okay, so now that you have the back wheel loose, you have some play there. That'll allow us to install the chain properly, and then by adjusting the back wheel, you'll be able to tighten the tautness on the chain, AKA make it tight. So the next thing we're gonna do is mock up the chain on the sprocket and the driver to see the desired length that we wanna cut down the chain to. As always, be careful when doing this. You don't wanna get your finger anywhere near the sprocket or the driver. Just kind of lay it over and then pull it to the desired length and then measure it up. So as you can see, the closest link without being too tight, because you gotta remember that we've slammed the back end. So this is as far forward as it can go. So anything where it's too tight, you won't be able to get it on. So we've decided that this link right here is gonna be the one that we're gonna cut down. All right, so all we gotta do now is assemble our chain tool. It's pretty easy. This guy goes here, this guy goes here, and you're all set. All right, so much like when you're using a knife or a saw or anything of that sort to cut something down, you're gonna wanna always measure twice and cut once. So once again, we're gonna take that measurement to make sure that that's the desired length we want. We select this link, and then the important part to remember is that basically this tool is gonna knock this pin back. You don't wanna do it too much or else it's gonna fall out completely. You wanna just do it right to the length where the link is actually sitting on the male piece's very furthest end. Okay, so now we got the pin inside the chain breaker, and what you're gonna wanna do is make sure that this pin on the actual chain tool is lined up properly with the pin inside the chain. And then what you wanna do is gradually spin this to push the pin out. Keep in mind, you don't wanna push the pin the whole way out. You just wanna push the pin so that you can kind of wiggle the chain loose. So if you look very closely, you can see I've left a little gap between the actual body of the chain and the tool. And what that does is it makes it so that the pin isn't fully into the chain and knocking the pin from the chain completely out. Now it's a matter of unwinding the tool. So as you can see here, the pin isn't completely out for us to be able to wiggle it and make it come out. And there you go. All right, so the excess chain that we have left, you're gonna wanna keep somewhere safe, because if you ever break a link or a pin, you have a replacement here. So as you can see, the pin is still on the body, but it's come out enough so we can reassemble the other piece of the chain. When you're working with a full link chain, what you're gonna wanna remember is that you have both a female and a male piece. So this piece is the one that we originally cut, and this piece is gonna be the female piece that we'll be inserting to the male portion to reassemble our chain. So now it's time to assemble the chain. So what you wanna do is grab the female portion, find the male portion, and then make them come together. So what you're gonna be doing is inserting this female piece into the male piece. And all you have to do is slide it in and kind of get it right past that pin that we pushed out. And then once you actually wiggle it on right, you'll hear it click into place. Once it's snapped in, you're gonna wanna use your chain tool to push the pin back in. So what you wanna do is bottom both ends out. So you're gonna have to rewind the pin out on the chain tool here. So this bolt here, that's on the back side of the chain tool, this is gonna rest up against the body and it's gonna allow you to align it properly and push the pin back in and it's gonna hold it in place. So as you can see, when you actually turn this tool to the right and you tighten it up, it's gonna push the body a little up higher, and it's gonna allow you to be able to easily push the pin in. Now, a reason why a lot of people break chain tools is because they don't align this pin properly. They just start cramming the chain tool in. And what you wanna do is make sure that it's straight, and then slowly turn the tool to see if the pin is being guided in properly. Okay, so as you can see, I'm a seasoned vet, so this is no big deal for me, but for you guys, it might be a little bit more of a struggle. If you notice that it's not going in smoothly, just reverse, and then try again. Wiggle it a little bit, maybe loosen this a little bit, and then start pushing the pin back in. It should be going in pretty easily, but like I said, if it's not, it means it's crooked. So it looks good. Push it all the way through. So as you can see, you're gonna wanna push the pin to where it's even on both sides. So you don't want it to be protruding on either side too much. So we're gonna be pushing it right towards the middle where there's about 1/2 millimeter here showing on both sides of the chain. Now you rewind, loosen the back end, and then see how we're looking. So this is what you don't want. As you can see, the pin is way too far out on one side and not far out on the other. So all you gotta do is go back on the other side and kind of play with it a little bit until you get to right to that middle ground. So I'm gonna push it a little bit back, and voila, we're on. So now the pin is back together, and it's almost where you can't even find it because you did such a seamless job of putting it back together. Now it's time to put the chain back on the sprocket and the driver. Get the chain past the sprocket. Behind the sprocket, you can rest it on the bottom bracket. Align it on the driver first, and then put it over the sprocket on the top side, and then just give it a little pedal forward. As you can see, there's a little bit of slack to our chain, but all you're gonna have to do is come to the back end and tighten up your back wheel. Let's talk about chain tautness, or how tight you want the chain. You don't ever want it to be to the point that when you're cranking, you can actually hear cracking and popping. That's something bad. As you can see, this is a little too tight. So you're gonna want the chain to have a little bit of bounce. You don't ever want it to be rock solid, because what that'll do is that'll blow out your driver, it'll eat up your sprocket, and it'll give you a bunch of issues. So this is a side-by-side comparison of a half-link chain versus a full-link chain. So what you can clearly see is that there are more pins in a full-link chain than there are half-link. And that's because there's a male and then a female, male and then a female link. So the reasoning behind the half-link chain is two things. Number one, if you have half as many pins, you have half as many breaking points. And number two, if you have half links versus full links, and a full link will consider the male and the female, you have a different length. So when you're looking at the ends of the chain, you'll see that there's a male pin and a female pin. But the back of this male pin is a female, and the back of this is still a female followed by a male link. So when you're breaking this chain, you have to actually pick the right spot to break it at. When you're breaking a half link chain, you can virtually break it at any spot because there'll always be the male-female versus this being a male or a female link. So for installation, the half link chain is a little easier when it comes to picking where you're gonna cut it. Okay, so unlike the full link chain, the half link chain does have a direction. Not only does it have a direction, it has a top and bottom. So as you can see, the bottom end of this chain is a little more rounded than the top, and that's because it allows for the contouring around the sprocket more. So what you want to do is you can have this portion, which I call the flame piece. You want the larger flame piece to be aiming forward, and then you want the rounded piece to be touching the sprocket. If you put it like this, that's upside down, and if you put it like this, it's upside down and backwards. So remember, you're going to want the flame forward, and then the rounded piece on the actual sprocket and driver. Okay, we'll get it around the sprocket. Decide on the link. I think we're gonna go with that one. And we're ready to cut it. So you're gonna wanna loosen the bottom piece on the chain tool and make sure that the top piece is all the way up. And then you wanna place the chain in the tool. Tighten up the bottom piece so that the pin and the body are pushed into the chain tool, and then start turning the chain tool to push the pin out. Okay, same thing. You don't want to push the pin too far out. You're going to want to loosen the bottom piece of the chain tool to remove the chain. So once the pin is loose, you just want to wiggle it a little bit until it pops right off. And now you're ready to assemble it. Get the other end, match them up. So an important difference is on these links, the actual outer bodies kind of move around a little bit. So when you're putting the pin back in, you're gonna wanna make sure that the back piece is lined up properly when you're pushing the pin through. And a good way to do that is to use the bottom piece of this animal tool to tighten it up and keep it in place. Okay, so you just keep pushing it until you hear a slight pop, and that'll give you the cue that you're all the way in. Again, loosen the back piece and wiggle her off. So one of the main reasons that people really like the half links are that it actually allows you a better adjustment of your chain. So because these are half links, a bunch of halves give you a closer adjustment point. So you can actually have the back end be shorter on things. So I'll do an actual side-by-side comparison of the actual placement of the axle, but you'll notice that this is further in on the dropout and the chain is still pretty tight. Lastly, you crank her down. And you're ready to shred. All right guys, well, I hope that helped you guys install both a half link and a full link chain. And I hope it gave you guys a little bit of input on what the difference between both chains are. As far as strength goes, I personally recommend the half link chains just because there's half as many pins that you'll be able to break, and the construction on the Shadow one is pretty good. So it'll be a really strong chain to pedal on. So as always, this guy's not much help. He's here for moral support, I guess. But you know what to do. Like, comment, leave me any suggestions or feedback, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. So I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow from the US Open in Huntington Beach, California. Later.